Pranaam Guruji. I was introduced to the Gayatri Mantra at the age of 7 during my Upanayana, and later in my life I was introduced to the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra. Can you please tell me the meaning and significance of both these mantras and what would be the correct way of the rituals?
The meaning and significance of the Gayatri and Mahamrityunjaya mantras, and the correct way to chant and associated rituals, kind of things. So now, this being more a religious and spiritual understanding, it is very important that we should remember that for many of others this may be a new thing, though they might have heard over these kind of things, but we are getting a bit detail into this. Anything that is new, sometimes in the initial stages will not be much comfortable to be listening, but yet anything that we start getting into, as we understand, comprehend and contemplate, will find the Sanatana Dharma, the great rituals and procedures and mantras and everything, they hold a greater significance in our life. And this is what is given to us as a treasure by someone who have invested their life without anticipating anything in return, unlike most of us who do everything for a return in our lives. So let's go with the Gayatri Mantra, and I'm going to tell the mantra. You know the mantra being the questioner here. Om Bhuvah Suvah Tat Savituhu Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. The Gayatri Mantra from the Rig Veda, the 10th verse, the 62nd Sukta of the 3rd Mandala. There is a structure for every Veda, the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and the Atharvana Veda. So I am also putting that for you, for all of us to understand, though we have not heard about the structure, the mandala and the sukta and the verse. This particular Gayatri Mantra is an invocation to Savit. Savit is the divine sun. It is a universal prayer for illumination of the intellect. Dhiyo Yonah, Dhi means the intellect. So the Bhuh Bhuvaha Soha, there are 3 planes of existence: the physical and mental or psychological and causal states of these planes. Tat Savituhu Varenyam, that supreme light of Savita, who is the sun, is the most excellent. Tat Savituhu Varenyam, the most excellent. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, I meditate upon that divine effulgence. Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat, may that guide my intellect. It is the cornerstone of the Vedic living and Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya here being the walking the path of the Brahma, the truth. This mantra awakens Viveka, the discrimination, and leads us towards the Brahmajnana, the eternal truth. The eternal truth, once we attain, there is no need for anything else. Till such time we are looking for something, we started exploring. This is a very existential nature that we look for something. Until we attain that, we keep exploring. And now let's go to the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra. We'll talk about this a bit in a more profound way going forward. We know that the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra is Trayambakam Ejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyam Amritat. This is from the Yajurveda, Taittiriya Samhita. And this is the mantra addressed to Lord Rudra, the Layakaraka, the absorber, the 3-eyed one, Trayambaka, seeking what? Freedom from death, the death being the bondage here. This mantra prays not just merely for long life, but for liberation. The liberation of the samsara itself. It is said in this mantra that Urvarukamiva Bandhanat, like a cucumber, Urvarka is the cucumber, detaching from its stalk as it ripens without any pain. It just drops. So like that, a cucumber that detaches from its stalk. May I be freed from the bondage of this death. This mantra is deeply, profoundly powerful when chanted with a devotion, especially during sickness or on deathbed, and fear and the transition that we undergo with the pain, especially at the time of the death, or even at the when we are transitioning in our life with the fear of death. When we say fear of death, not just a physical death, but even to face anything in our life. So now, correct way of chanting and rituals. If you look at the correct way of chanting, there are many ways of chanting. The Rigvedic way of chanting is different. The Ajurvedic, Krishna Ajurveda and Shukla Ajurvedic chanting is different. And the rituals may also slightly differ based on the Vedic tradition that particular region follows. Now if we look at the Japa Vidhi, both these mantras generally chanted early in the morning after the Shuddhi or the Snana, and the Sandhya Vandana is between the darkness and the light, dawn and dusk and dawn. And also use of Rudrakshamala for Mahamrityunjaya Mantra and Tulasi or Spatikamala for Gayatri Mantra is generally prescribed. So chanting should be most of the time should be mentally, manasika, or in a what we call as the Upamshu Vidhi, which is in a soft whisper, is what is generally recommended for the best results as per the Vedic tradition. So for Gayatri, let me not get into more of the process of the ritual, but every Vatu, or the one who got the Upanayana Samskara done, he was addressed by the Guru or the Acharya, like the Achamana and then Pranayama and the Nyasa and chanting facing the sun or towards the east is something what we look at, because the Savitu is nothing but the God Sun. He is the Sun God. So for Mahamrityunjaya or the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra, we need to do, normally it is recommended that with the Ardhadmasana. We'll talk about this more detail later, but generally I'm mentioning. But a focused mind is something which is primarily needed. And optionally also offer water, Jala Abhisheka onto the Shiva Linga while chanting is what we need to look at. So these are normally addressed by the acharyas of the respective tradition, respective regions and respective geographies as per respective Vedic traditions that family follows or that particular region follows. So now we need to understand the certain religious methods and the spiritual profundity. It is not just that we do some mantra. It is not just that we do some ritual like every other thing that we do in our routine lives. If you look at our Sanatana Dharma, mantras are not just verbal sounds. They are not just what we talk or utter. They are vibrational embodiments of cosmic principles, because they are the ones, like Vishwamitra is the one who has seen this Gayatri Mantra. Mantra is never uttered. It is seen. It is seen in the depths of the mind. So compared to many religious methods that rely on belief or submission, Veda mantras are paths of direct inner transformation is what you need to look at. What we call this as the Adhyatma Sadhana. While other paths, many emphasize personal devotion, moral codes, or mystical union, the Vedic path combines jnana, the knowledge, karma, the ritual, and bhakti, the devotion, in a seamless way. Not just as something that is told and just we do, but it is in a very transformative and seamless way as we keep walking that path. The profundity lies in its systematic spiritual technology, each mantra, each sound has a specific vibration that aligns you with the cosmic principle. So the Gayatri purifies the mind and opens it to the divine intelligence, while Mahamrityunjaya offers fearlessness, healing, and the vision of immortality. Together, both together, because your question is about these two. So I'm just combining these together. They represent light and liberation. The two wings of the soul's flight to the divine is what we need to understand. And now when I come to the Gayatri Mantra, we need to look at the chronology of the samskaras that is being done within the cycle of a human life. There are 16 samskaras. These are the 16 rituals that starts transforming a life into various phases towards its objective. These are the Shodasa samskaras, the 16 Vedic rites of the passage that sanctify the key stages in the life, from conception to the death. These samskaras are not just rituals, but are designed to refine and purify the individual physically, mentally, and spiritually. They just cannot be done, without knowing the meaning of them. Look at marriage. Marriage is a samskara. So it is just, we just keep making fun. That's fine. I don't, oppose that. But there is a profundity in every mantra. It's a language of the gods. The mantra is the language of the gods. So the samskaras, I just wanted to take, this particular question to be explained with the samskaras also. Because this is a whole life cycle. Like the Garbhadana, it starts with the conception rite is called. That which is performed after marriage. This is the ritual for invoking a spiritually evolved soul into the womb. It's a prayerful union of a righteous progeny is what we need to look at. Then what is the second samskara is called Pumsavana, the fetus protection rite. That which is done in the 3rd month of the pregnancy. It is a ritual to ensure the healthy development of the fetus and sometimes to beget a virtuous child. In a symbolic sense, representing the strength and the lineage. Then what we call as a Simantonnayana, the hair parting ceremony, it has got a greater significance. Performed in the 5th or 7th month of the pregnancy, it is meant to protect the mother and the child and bless the mother with mental peace. Tell me how many out of pregnancy are mentally peaceful. The mothers who are carrying, how many of them are peaceful? Is it not that gets inherited, the kind of emotional imbalances and outages? What kind of a generations are we producing? So in the Simantonnayana, the husband parts the hair of the mother who is carrying, or the wife of that husband, and prays for the child's well-being. And then goes with the Jatakarma, the 4th, the birth ritual, conducted immediately after the birth. This involves, whispering and sacred mantras into the baby's ears. We always keep screaming. Do we know what's happening to the child? We keep quarreling when the child is besides. Even, whispering, the Jatakarma, the birth ritual, the sacred mantras are whispered in the ear of the baby. Look at many shots that are coming. When mantras and sankirtans are being done, the babies are how pleasant they are. The newly born babies even. There is a great response system with the mantras that we chant or utter. So, the even Omkara, all these symbolize the spiritual awakening from birth itself. Then goes Namakarana. This is one samskara out of the 16 samskaras, the naming ceremony. Normally, as per the local traditions, family traditions, 11th day or 12th day and 13th day after the birth, or even sometimes on the 21st day, the child is given a name usually based on astrology, nakshatra and family traditions. Then the next samskara comes as the nishkramana, the first outing of the child is taken out, the baby is taken out. Performed in the 4th month, it marks the child's first exposure to the outside world. Involving a visit, it typically involves a first, outing involves a visit to a temple or seeing the sun or moon. Then goes with the annaprasana, the first feeding of the solid food, performed in the 6th month. Typically, this is when the child is first given solid food like cooked rice with ghee. And it signifies the beginning of the bodily nourishment through the annamaya kosha with the help of the food. Then chudakarana, the tonsure ceremony, the first hair cutting that is usually done in the 1st or the 3rd year, symbolizing removal of the past karmas and impurities and the start of a new phase of the growth. Then karnavedha, ear piercing, that is which is done before the Upanayana. Piercing of the ears, it's both spiritual and health related if you look at it. It is to stimulate nerves and refine hearing and speech. How many are speaking? Even 3rd year people are not speaking. Many people who are many children into autism. So these are the samskaras that we are looking at. These hold a greater significance for the child to be, growing in a way that the child is nourished both physically and mentally. So this is performed in early childhood also, this Karnavedha. Then Vidyarambha, beginning of the education. Initiation into formal learning, generally at the age of 5. The child is taught to write their first syllables, often starting with Om Namah Shivaya, Siddham Namaha, in Telugu tradition. Maybe in a different way in some other traditions. Then goes with Upanayana. This is what the question is about. The Gayatri Mantra, sacred thread ceremony that marks entry into Brahmacharya ashrama. Brahmacharya here being walking the path of the knowledge. Brahmacharya, charati, means, walking. Now this child is initiated into Vedic study and given the Yajnopavita, sacred thread, and the Gayatri Mantra. That which is raised in this question about the significance of the Gayatri Mantra. Then the child goes into the Vedarambha, the school or the Gurukula. So this is the actual state, that starts the formal Vedic education under an Acharya or the teacher or a Guru. So, though traditionally linked with Upanayana, it is also counted separately in some traditions, like Vedarambha is a separate tradition. Then what is called as the Samavartana, completion of education. The graduation ceremony, what we call, we will just throw the hats into the air. This graduation ceremony from the Gurukula is after the Brahmacharya. The student is now ready to return to the society and take on the responsibilities with the knowledge that he or she acquired. Then Vivaha, the 14th samskara is Vivaha, the marriage. The most elaborate samskara marking the start of Grihastha Ashrama, the householder life in the society. It sanctifies the union of two individuals from dharmic living and procreation is what we need to understand. That's how the creation goes on. And then the 15th samskara is the Vanaprastha, the retirement. A transition into a life of detachment and contemplation where one withdraws from worldly duties to focus on the last turn of the life towards the final objective. And then the 16th samskara is what is called as the Antyeshti, the last rites. If I have to say, it is cremation. This whole life cycle is described and it has been transitioned with samskaras, with a profound transformative processes involved as these rites. The final samskara being the Antyeshti, performed after death to help the soul's onward journey and release from the physical existence. So now the I just talked about the samskaras for all of us to know about these things, that these exist. We just know marriage in an isolated way. We just know, the school going into separate way. We just know graduation into more making fun, but all the time struggling later when we get into an employment. But these are the 16 samskaras of the Vedic wisdom, Vedic, process in the Sanatana Dharma that have been given to us. We should know about them. We just cannot reject them, looking at them to be superstitious, or with a sense that they do not make any sense. So now look at the Trayambakam Yajamahe, because I was talking about the Gayatri Mantra. Now look at the Mrutyunjaya Mantra. Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarakamaeva Vandhanan Mrutyurmukshe Mamritat. I worship the three-eyed one, the Lord Rudra or Shiva, who is fragrant and who nourishes all beings. May he liberate me from the bondage of the death, like a cucumber separated from its stalk so easily, and not let me fall away from the immortality. If you look at the significance of this mantra, Trayambakam, three-eyed one, the Shiva, the third eye symbolizes the inner vision and spiritual awakening. Sugandhim, the fragrant, indicating inner purity and divine qualities that we need to be establishing ourselves within. Pushtivardhanam, the one who nourishes and strengthens all life. Urvarukamiva, like a ripe cucumber effortlessly falling off its vine, symbolizing natural and peaceful release from all the kinds of mental struggles, and also the physical body at the end. Mrutyurmukshiya, free me from the death, the meaning freedom from the cycle of birth and death, the samsara, freeing from the cycle of these thoughts that are turning into suffering or joy, that are of the nature of the temporality. Amritat, and not from immortality, but Amritat, Mrutyurmukshiyam Amritat, may not be separated from the spiritual truth, is what we need to understand. So what should we understand from this? We need to conquer the fear of death, not just physical death. Not just physical death. We are dying in the name of living with all kinds of fears. That's the real fear of death. So the mantra is invoking Lord Shiva, the conqueror of death, to protect the sadhaka, to protect me from ultimately or painful death, and grant spiritual fearlessness. Here when I say from ultimately or painful death, we are dying every moment with painful thoughts. And this mantra is about healing and rejuvenation. When we chant this mantra, it is to activate life force energy, the pranic energy, and aid in recovery from illness and mental suffering. This mantra aligns the subtle energies and strengthens the sustenance system, immune system. And this is freedom from bondage. Like a cucumber that detaches from the vine without struggle, the mantra prays for a peaceful detachment from a mortal bondage, what is represented as the moksha, the liberation. And this mantra is about karmic purification, purifying the subtle body, mind and emotions that we are always getting dumped in. Thus dissolving the past karmas and removing internal obstacles. And this mantra talks about the universal relevance also, what we need to understand. Unlike many sectarian prayers, this mantra is universal and applicable to anyone seeking healing, protection and spiritual growth. And when do we need to chant? How do we chant? The best times that were prescribed to us, as asked by the questioner here, early morning Brahma Muhurta, when during illness, at the time of anxiety, or even what is mentioned as when we start traveling. And the repetitions, the count, often it is chanted in the sets of 108 Of course, there is a supplementary question, why 108? What is the significance? We'll talk about it. Or even 1008, or during Japasadhana, Homa or Abhisheka, you can chant as many times. With water or Rudraksha, chanting with Jalabhisheka while offering. Shiva doesn't need many things. Just offer a spoonful of water with devotion. He graces us. So Jalabhisheka to his Sivalinga is very powerful, is what is mentioned. So Mahamrityunjaya Mantra is a mantra of victory over death, is what we need to. Not just physical death, but the death that we have every time in our mind with fears of facing this world. Not just physical death, but the deeper death of ignorance, fear and bondage. We may be looking very brave to the outside world, but we are dying every moment within our mind with all kinds of fears. This mantra is a gateway to healing, longevity and liberation. Release from these fears that we have. We think we are living, but we are dying every moment in the name of the living, is what we need to understand. So the fear of the death, the Mrutyunjaya, in a deeper spiritual terms, is not just the fear of physical body ending. It is the fear of losing identity, control and continuity. This is the real death. What does it make a sense that we live to showcase ourselves to be living, but always suffering with the fears? This is the real death, the fears that we hold every now and then. So spiritually, this mantra points to our ignorance of the true self. So it is like fear of annihilation of the ego, ahankar. We have the fear of losing identity. What we call I is often is a bundle of body, emotions, memories and thoughts. The fear arises when we subconsciously sense that this constructed I is impermanent and will eventually dissolve. The ego fears death because it senses its illusion will be exposed. And there is a fear of the unknown. We do not remember what came before birth or what comes after death. Spiritually, this fear is due to ignorance, what we call as the avidya in the spiritual Sanatana Dharma sense. Not knowing our eternal nature beyond birth and death. And attachment and clinging, what we call as the raga and moha. Fear of death is intensified by attachment to body, people, possessions, roles and desires. Death threatens to strip all this away. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, Krishna Paramatma says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvan janma mutatsya cha. For one who is born, death is certain. For one who is born, death is certain. Yet the soul, Atma, is unborn, undying and eternal, is what your true self. And now you need to understand that death is a portal, not an end. In deeper traditions like Vedanta, Yoga and even Tantra, death is not an end but a transition. What fears death is the limited self of this body and the mind, not the soul, which is eternal. True spiritual insight dissolves the fear of death because you realize, I am not the body, I am the witness of birth and death. And liberation from the death, what we call as the Amritattva, the goal of our spiritual life is moksha. We have been exploring only for that. Freedom from the cycle of birth and death. This happens not by extending life, but by realizing that our true nature is beyond time and space, these two dimensions. If you look at it, this, in essence, fear of death is actually fear of losing what we are not. Remember this. I repeat again, fear of death is actually fear of losing what we are not. When we realize what we truly are, the eternal, formless consciousness, the fear naturally vanishes. So, if we look at certain meditative reflections, look at Nirvana Shakam. Mano buddhyahamkar chittani naham na cha shrotra jihve na cha ghrana netre na cha vyoma bhumi न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्. Sit in silence. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Let these words enter into your awareness. I am not this body that decays. I am not the mind that trembles. I am not the name that fades. I am the light that never dies. I am the witness of all births and deaths. This is the truth. It prevails whether I know or I don't know. I was before even this body. I shall remain after this body dissolves. Let this awareness expand. Death is but a change of clothing, as mentioned by Bhagavad Gita. A doorway through which you pass, and nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal ever lived. Isn't it so? So, when the fear of death arises, recognize it is not the truth, but as the echo of the ego. Return to the stillness within, with your soul itself, unchanging, that which is unchanging and pure. Look at Bhagavad Gita. In second adhyaya, in Sankhya Yoga, it says, the self is never born and never dies. It is not slain when the body is slain. Kathopanishad, between Nachiketa and Yama, it very clearly tells that the wise one who knows the self as bodiless within the bodies, eternal among the changing, gives up all grief. Look at Ramana Maharshi. Find out who dies. Find out who is fearing. Then you will realize there is no such a thing as death. Look at Swami Vivekananda's sayings. You were never born, you will never die. What is death but the falling of a worn out body? Look at mantra contemplations. You may softly, we have Soham chant, no? Soham. This is what we call as the Ajipa Gayatri. Soham. Soham means I am that. And also Naham Deho. This is one more mantra. I am not that body. So these are the certain mantras that dissolve the false identification with the perishable and root you in the eternal. So now the supplementary question we'll try to look at.